Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I am Lisa of Diamonds and Stitches, and today is another Whips and Sips. I am, continuing with my Seahawks piece. I think I'm halfway done. Yeah, I'm half done already, which is crazy. And it's Seahawks Saturday, so we have a game today. Again, I don't know who we're playing. 49ers today? We might be playing the 49ers, I'm not sure. So that will be exciting. I'm looking forward to the game tonight. Go Hawks. And so I thought I would jump on as I am alone today. The boy, the man of the house, Sean, is doing some overtime. And so I thought that while I have the house to myself and it's quiet, that I would diamond paint and maybe jump on and do some more chatting. I mean, good Lord, 2 whips in a row. That's crazy. But my goal, well, I'm hoping, is that I can get this one finished so that I can dump the diamonds and get another kit kitted up, because I do have, well, no, actually, so you guys know my storage system, right? And I really like the 60 bottle storage system, but most kits don't have 60 colors in them. And so, I either don't, I mainly am able to get 2 kits in one 60 bottle, but sometimes I'm not able to. So what I do is, like, I will take the colors that have a lot. Like in this case, it's 38, what is this one? 30, what is it? Yeah, 3865 is the prevalent color in this kit. And so I decided not to use a bottle for it because I didn't have enough. From the other kit that I did, let me back up and try and explain that a little better. So 60 bottles. I have 2 kits kitted up in this 60 bottle case, but the first kit took 36 bottles, and that is the Mandy Manzano friend of the maidens that I kitted up first. And then I kind of looked for another diamond painting that had, obviously, what 36 minus, that's what, 24 bottles, is that right? 10, 20, yeah, 24 bottles, that so that I had 24 colors. Well, I didn't quite make it with the kits that I had, and so I took the one that had less, that had some colors that were super prevalent that I was not going to use a bottle for. So if this one was 30 colors, so that means that I would have to have 6 colors that did not have a bottle for. And as luck would have it, not really luck, but as it turned out, this kit was missing 2 colors. 2 colors completely missing out of the kit. But because I saved my Mandy Manzano rounds, because I saved the Diamond Art Club diamonds in rounds, I was able to find those colors, and I have enough to finish this kit for that. So they're already packaged up, so I just pulled those and put them in the cargo net, I call it the cargo net, of the case. And then I looked at like more of the prevalent colors. So 30, what did I say it was? 3865 was really prevalent. It had a lot of bags to it. 310 had a lot of bags to it. $37.50. And so I was able to whittle down the amount of jars that I was going to need, bottles I was going to need for this kit, and just place those up in the cargo net and continue on. So that's what I did with this one. So now, so really only 36 bottles are labeled correctly with the numbers 1 through 36, and then I started over with 1 through 24. And so my jars are not labeled correctly. So once those 2 kits are done, I'm going to unkit my diamonds. I will save the Diamond Art Club ones. This canvas, I will throw these ones away because I truly don't keep the diamonds from kits. Even though in the future I'm going to do a HADE, Heaven and Earth Designs, I'm just going to buy mine. And here's the reason why. If I continue to save the diamonds for the kits, there are different dye lots just the same as there is in DMC threads. And I just don't want to have to go and try and figure out as I'm kitting down, is this the right color, and then have to throw it out anyways. It's not worth it to me. And so I keep the Diamond Art Club ones for a small amount of time. I don't even keep them for that long. And you know, until I'm done a couple of kits. And then when I start getting too many, I just start throwing them out because I'm never going to need that many. I really am not. You know, like this kit, it did not have 2 colors, but of the 2 colors that it was missing, it probably had like less than 50 diamonds of each color is needed. And so I'm like, well, I mean, you know, that's easy. That's so easy. And why do I need to keep, you know, 200-300 diamonds of the same color? I'm not going to. So, and that's just me. That is just me. Other people feel differently. And, you know, I've seen some really cool, people have been doing some really cool things with their leftover diamonds. And I just read this morning actually on Facebook that somebody is going to make a resin egg out of theirs. And I think that that's cool. Like, that is really cool. I cannot do another craft. I just can't. I love the resin. I think that making, you know, your own charms or your own cover minders, which is funny because we call them needle minders in cross stitching. And so when I saw them come out as cover minders, I was like, hey, I could use my needle minders because that's what they are. And so, yeah, I think that it's cool, and I had thought quite a while ago, you know, to maybe start something like that, but again, I cannot do another craft. I just can't. I barely have time for the crafts that I do have, and I keep buying, and it keeps piling up, so, yeah. Yeah, so, today I thought that I would talk about some little life ramblings. Actually, today I thought I would talk about jobs, and this kind of came up because where I work for an accounting firm, and I do payroll for the accounting firm. And one of my clients called up the other day with an issue that they had, and we have, you know, I chit chat with them and stuff, and was starting to, you know, you just chit chat, and oh, that's a weird one, and we went kind of down memory lane and talked about newspaper jobs back in the day, and I don't even really know how we got on that subject. Let's stop for a sip. And I hope, oh my gosh, you guys, I forgot to say this. Get your whip out, get your project out, whatever you're doing. And then let's just have chat hour. I'm 10 minutes in and I'm totally like, hey. Oh my gosh. It's Saturday morning. That dang dog started again before 7 o'clock and he let it go until 8:30 this morning. And okay, so funny story. Remember last week that I told you guys, like, you know, we're doing the fence at Sean's, right? And we didn't open up the back section, the back one, because we only did the sides because the people behind us have a dog, and we hadn't talked to them before we ordered all the supplies and everything, and it's also a rental house, and so we need to, you know, talk to the owner of the house as well as the renters. And because the renters had a dog, we wanted to make sure that, you know, that they were aware that it was going to take a couple of days, and in order to keep their dog safe, because, you know, we love dogs, and we didn't want anything happening to the dog, and potentially getting either injured, you know, or coming over and then escaping through parts of the fence that was not complete yet. And so, you know, we were going to go and do that when Sean came back from Portland in 2 weeks, because we don't have the capability right now, time or energy to do the back part of the fence, which is you know, the longest fence. And so like Tuesday, I think he texted me and he goes, the people behind us moved. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, the house is empty now. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. Like, there was no indication, or not that we noticed. And people around here are really quiet. Like in my neighborhood, okay, we know everything. They're all chatters. There's a bunch of older gentlemen who live in my neighborhood, and they are the neighborhood gossips, you guys. Like, if you want to know information on what's going on in the neighborhood, you go see Johnny or Larry, because those two know everything. And of course, so do their wives. But they're the ones who are out all the time. And it's hilarious. Like, it's hilarious. But we know all the ins and outs of our neighborhood. And I've also been there for 20 some odd years too. So, yeah. And yeah. But in Sean's neighborhood, they are like, yeah, you don't even get waved at, you know, when you come in and out of the neighborhood. The kids don't stop and talk to you. It's the weirdest, like, they're super private over here. And there was a lady who lived directly across from Sean. Really nice lady. I think she worked for the military. And she was out one day, you know, doing some lawn maintenance and whatever. She's since moved. She sold her house this summer. This is a clear one. Oh my gosh, you guys, I have an actual clear. This is a clear one. I don't think I've ever seen a clear diamond. Like, that's not a rhinestone. It's legit clear. How weird is that? Can you guys see that? No, you can't. There you go. Look at that. It's completely clear. Weird. So anyway, she was out, you know, one day, and I'm, you know, again, I'm used to my neighborhood. Friendly. Hey, how's it going? You know? And it was the weirdest thing. It was like, you know, she was polite, she was very nice, but it was like, you know, no, I don't really want to talk. Like, that's not what we do here. It's so weird. I blame it on Sean. I said it's because he's a grumpy old man and nobody wants to talk to him. And that I'm here to lighten up his life. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, back to the fence. So I said to Sean, I wonder if it's because of the baying dog, because that dog, it is next door to the house that just moved. And so the house that the house that we share a fence with, obviously, is right behind us, and then right next door to them, to the right, when you're looking at the back of the houses, is the house with the dog. And so they had to listen to that dog all the time. And they had a dog. They did. They had a dog. But that dog was quiet. I actually took a picture of that dog once and put it on my Instagram. He was sitting in a chair like a person. He just needed a top hat. And just the way he was sitting, it was just so regal. And it just struck me as so stinking funny. That but that dog was quiet. I don't even think I ever heard. I mean, yes, the dog barked, but not for any extended length of time, that's for sure. So, but there's a lot of military people around here, and because we're close to the military base, and you know, chances are that they moved because they had a different post. And but it was just so bizarre that, you know, we were just thinking about going over there and talking to them, and they up and left. And kind of wish that the people with the baying dog were in military and they were leaving too. Goodness sakes. Seriously, an hour and a half. Like, yeah. And that dog was out late last night, yesterday too. Late last night, yesterday, obviously, duh. And he was barking until, well, I don't know when they let him out, but I heard that dog at probably, I think we went to bed around midnight, and it was still barking at 11:15, somewhere in there. So, yeah. Anyways, I mean, I know I talk about this dog all the time, and, you know, it annoys me. It annoys me as a pet parent when, you know, pet parents allow their dogs to bark. They don't pick up the dog's poop from, you know, public places, because that's gross, or people's lawns. Because, you know what? Nobody wants to go out and mow their lawn and step in dog crap. Like, I'm sorry. No, don't. Just don't. And I actually had, because, you know, my neighborhood's full of dogs. And my dogs are kept in my backyard. We have a big kennel for them outside. And so they do their business in there, and I clean it up every day, you know. And when we walk our dogs, we take poop bags no matter where we're going, trails, you know, parks, just the neighborhood, whatever. We take poop bags, and there are some times that we run out of the poop bags, and I have had to go back and, you know, pick up poop from a hike that I did because we ran out of bags. And dang dog. And he gets nervous. When he gets nervous, things happen. And so, yep, I had to go back and, you know, do the hike again. I drove most of it to go and pick up the poop, because I think that it's just wrong. Like, it's just wrong. And, but anyways, I had a lady who continually walked her dog and thought that it was completely fine that her dog would take a lovely present and leave it on my lawn, and she would never pick it up. And so one day I was out there, well, I saw her through my window, and I opened the door and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you need, you know, a bag to pick up your dog's poop?" And she looked at me and she went, "Well, why would I do that?" And I'm like, "Well, do you think that I want to, like, let my granddaughter out and play on the lawn and get covered in dog poop?" And she's like, "Well, there's other dogs and cats that run around in this neighborhood that are free." And I'm like, okay, but that's a different matter. You're standing there and your dog is letting loose on my lawn, and you know that it's there, and you think that that's an okay thing to do when there are, you know, humans that live in this house and walk on the grass. And she tried to argue with me that it was completely okay because there were strays or, you know, loose animals in the neighborhood that would do the exact same thing. And I'm like, are you a responsible pet owner? Like, I'm sorry, would you like me to scoop all of this up and then put it on your lawn? Like, really? Like, astounds me, astounds me. So she now picks up her poop off my lawn. Yes, she does. And I was very nice about it too. You know, like I'm just like, I mean, excuse me, ma'am. Okay, enough dog whining. Okay, I'm over the dog whining. You're not gonna hear about this stupid dog anymore. You probably will. Just kidding. But it does annoy me that, you know, that these owners, and I keep thinking in my head, maybe they're elderly, you know, and they can't get up, you know, fast enough every time the dog barks, or, you know, maybe they're disabled, and I just, yeah. Trying to make allowances, but I am surprised that like I'm not here. I'm only here, you know, every maybe 2 weekends a month. I've been here a little more because we've been doing projects, but typically, you know, we switch off his house, my house, and so I'm not here during the week, right? So I don't understand why the other neighbors in the neighborhood have not either complained and that, you know, something's being done about it or whatever. I would be that passive aggressive neighbor who would buy a, one of those muzzles from, from Amazon and gift it to you with a hint. Oh my gosh. Anyway, okay. So yeah, back to the jobs. So this client and I, we were going down memory lane, and I'm not entirely sure why, but he used to work for the paper in Seattle, and back home, you know, back in the day when you were able to actually deliver the newspapers. So yeah, so we went down memory lane. So that's kind of where I got this, hey, let's talk about jobs and what, you know, what you used to do in your life and what got you to where you are now, right? So, so I've always worked. I have, from the time that I was, so we moved into that house when I was 10, and I think when I was 12, yeah, 12. My mom knew this realtor, and he would deliver flyers in the surrounding neighborhood that he would sell houses in. And the neighborhood that I lived in was very, it was a fairly wealthy neighborhood. We were not wealthy. My parents, you know, my mom is really good at being able to find deals. And we bought this house, or my parents bought this house, fairly cheapish because it needed a lot of work. And it's the old adage, you know, buy the worst house in the best neighborhood and fix it up and it's worth, you know, a lot. Well, that's what my parents did. And it was a gorgeous house. It was built in 1901. And so we lived in a fairly exclusive neighborhood that was going to have the potential in the near future at that time to be an exclusive neighborhood. And my mom just has always been able to like see things in the future as they're going to be. And she just knew like this was the place. And so when we moved in, it was not the best. It was not the best neighborhood, but it started becoming a better neighborhood. And now it's, I mean, it's multi-million-dollar homes. Well, that's what they're selling for. And yeah. And which is crazy because, you know, I think, wow, it's Canada, right? Oh my goodness. Not that, oh, that sounded bad. That sounded weird. I just remember, so, okay, let me go down a little rabbit hole. My very first house that I bought, so I bought that house Connor was 5, Emily was 3. So, and she's 25 now. So 23 years ago, I bought my very first house for $87,000. $87,000. You can't buy a house for $87,000 now. And when I had looked that house up a while ago, you know, I was homesick and wanted to see what my house looked like. So, you know, you Google and you can find the whatever map and whatever. And I put my old address in, and I looked at the price of the house, and I was like, $422,000 is what it sold last for. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, $87,000, you guys, 23 years ago. Oh, yeah. And my house was, I live close to my parents. You know, it was like maybe a 15-minute walk from my house to my parents' house. And so not like super close, like, but, you know, close enough. And yeah. So, and my first house that I bought here in the States, was 187, really weird. 180, I like that 87 number, I guess, but it was 187 at the time. And I bought that house 20, well, Mitch is 19 now, and I was pregnant with him. Oh my God, he's going to be 20 really soon. So yeah, 20 years ago, I bought the house 20 years ago. And I paid 187 for that house, and that was considered cheap back then. So, you guys, it's crazy, you know, how much houses have appreciated, how much you can buy a house for now. Hence the reason why kids can't afford a house. My kids can't afford a house, and 2 of them have full-time, very good paying jobs. So yeah, anyway, so back to the realtor that, my mom knew, and he would pass out flyers, you know, drumming up business and getting people to know that he was the realtor of this neighborhood, you know, area. And so he asked my mom if my brother and I were willing to work for him. I think we worked 1 day a week. It's been a while, you guys. Like, seriously, I was 12. That's a long time ago. But he asked my mom, and she said, I mean, sure, you know, as long as it didn't interfere with school. And so after school, you know, he would meet us at my parents' house, and we would get a stack of flyers, and we would be paid a penny a flyer. So he would, you know, have 250 flyers for each one of us for the day, and we would have to deliver those flyers, which was not hard, 250. And so my brother would do one side of the street, and I would do the other. When we first started, we would do every other house. And the blocks were long, you know, and it was not hard to get that many flyers out. And he even did it in the apartment building, so that was nice, you know, because you just shoved a whole bunch into the mailbox. But as long as the 250 were gone, you know, we got paid. And so, yeah, a penny a flyer does not sound very much, but it added up, and we were 12, like I was 12, my brother was 10, I guess. And, yeah. And, yeah, so we did that. But, you know, here's the funny thing. So, you know, he would drive us to neighborhoods, you know, and then drop us off, and then he would stay in his car and do whatever he did. And this is back in the day before cell phones, you know, so nobody, even the satellite phone, you know, nobody had cell phones back then. And so he would write in his book, or he would, you know, do whatever the heck he was doing. He would crawl forwards as we finished, or he would, you know, drive 2 blocks up, and then we would finish that section. He would drive us over to the next neighborhood, or the next street over. Yeah, man, those were times. And so we did that for a couple of years. I would say a couple of years, maybe a year. And then I started delivering the newspaper. And so the Edmonton Sun and the Edmonton Journal. Man alive, did I hate Saturday, Sunday delivery. Man, those papers were heavy. More so Sunday, because of all the ads. But, and I loved Monday's paper because it was as thin as a wafer. It was awesome. It was great. But so I did that, and then one of the, I can't remember who was who, but one of the papers was a morning paper and the other paper was an afternoon paper. And so, and I had a little route at the time, and it got bigger, you know, because that was back in the day when you could actually go door to door and solicit for your, you know, your newspaper route. And that's actually how I got the senior citizen center, was because I just walked in there one day and started going door to door, and those old people love me. They like this little awkward looking redhead who chatted a lot. And so I love that building because it was the building I could get warm in, and I would do my route so that they were like the middle of my route, and then it ended up being the building that I would drop off on my way home, and so I would get warm again in there before I came home. So yeah, I love that place. But yeah, so back in the day, you know, when you used to be able to solicit for your own, there are some more bubbles in here. And also back when you used to collect your own money, and man, times have changed a lot, you guys, because you know, they used to have like, you know, young kids. I think you had to be 13. I think you had to be 13. Maybe you had to be 14. But I want to say it was 13. You had to be in order to do a route and collect the money, right? And so my brother got to have a route as well. And so we shared a route for a while, and then he went across where it was a little bit more across the busy street and into a different neighborhood, and did the route there. But he was not very good at collecting money, and so I would do that part. And yeah, I got pretty wrapped up in the whole newspaper paper delivery thing. And also there was it wasn't Tim Hortons. It was not Tim Hortons. It was a different donut place, and I wish I could remember what it was called. But it used to be on the corner of 124th, and I don't remember the other street. But they opened at 6 a.m. in the morning, and whichever paper I did in the morning, I want to say it was the Edmonton Sun. They were kind of on my route. They were probably a block and a half out of the way. But every morning I would go and I would get a cruller and some kind of chocolate donut. Yep. Almost every morning. They almost knew who I was. Well, I mean, they did know who I was. Because it's a neighborhood donut shop. And yeah, so I did that for a number of years. And then I got into babysitting probably when I was about 14. And I babysat for a couple of neighborhood people. And then when I was I 15 or 16? I nannied for a family. I think they had 3 kids, 2 girls and a little boy. They may have had 4 kids. I don't remember. Again, it was a long time ago, and I did babysit quite a few kids. But they were my summer job. So, and they were maybe 2 blocks away from my house. And they lived in a duplex. And but it was huge. It was just huge, and the backyard was huge, and they had like a little wading pool for the kids out there and stuff. And so we spent a lot of time outside, but they also had like a huge playroom for the kids downstairs. And And they had cable, which my parents never, my mom, we did not have cable. We had 3 channels. 3, 5, and 13. And we even had black and white for a long, long time too. We got a color. We had 2 TVs, 3 TVs in our house, 2 maybe. And one downstairs was a color TV, but it was mostly black and white because the color wouldn't come through properly. And you always had to like switch the rabbit ears and the antenna, and you were constantly like trying to make it so that you weren't getting the fuzzy picture. Yeah, memories. Anyway, and so they had cable, and they had color TV. And I watched a lot of MTV back in the day. Oh my gosh, a lot of MTV. But I babysat for these people. And funny story, here's my smallish claim to fame. They knew Wayne, they were friends with Wayne Gretzky. And because the dad was some kind of sports/music composer, and he had a studio downstairs in the duplex, and he knew Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky was a godfather of the boy, and so he would come every once in a while to their home, for parties and that kind of thing. So my little teeny tiny claim to fame that I got to see and meet Wayne Gretzky a few times. Never had an autograph or anything from him though, because that always seemed weird, and he was just like a person. He was just a person. He was a hockey person, but he was a person. And so I did that for one summer, and then, so I nannied for one summer, and then what did I do? So I had to have been 16. Yeah, 16. Yep. And a movie theater opened up in our mall, and a big movie theater. Well, big for the time. Like it was a big event in not West Edmonton Mall. I didn't live near, I didn't live near West Edmonton Mall. This was called Westmount Shopping Center, and a lot of big stores pulled out of there, and so there was this big space that was left, and they renovated it, and they made a theater up on the top, and then the food court was down in the bottom, and so when the movie theater went in, they did this whole like hiring and whatever. And so I got a concessions job from that. And because I could count. And this was also back in the day before we had cash registers. Like we had cash registers, but not ones that would total up things. You had to do it all yourself. And then at the end of the night, you had to do inventory and count up the cash, the floats, and that whole deal. And so I did that, but what was really cool about our movie theater was they were the first movie theater in Edmonton that piloted a cafe type movie theater, so you could get espresso and specialty cakes and a few sandwiches at our theater. And I desperately wanted to be on that side of the concessions instead of popcorn and whatever. And so, yep, I learned how to make cappuccinos and the cakes. And the cool thing about the cakes was if we didn't sell the cakes by the sell date, the people who worked in that area got the leftovers because they were just going to throw them out anyway. And so managers came first, obviously, and then whoever, got the leftovers. And so it was a nice little perk to be able to work over on that side. But yeah, and then I did the cashier job for a very little while. That was a very coveted position. Everybody wanted to be in the cashier because you got a different uniform, and you didn't have to get dirty. Your job literally was just the cashier, just cashier for the movie times. But the issue is that when the movie times were over and there were no more movies for the night, you were done. So your shifts were actually a lot less than if you worked in concessions or were on the maintenance or whatever. And our movie theater too had the upper concessions and the lower concessions. And so when we had a movie that was uber popular and 2 or 3 theaters were showing that same movie, then we would open up the upper concession stand to get the flow through of customers. And so concessions really had longer shift times than the cashiers did. So while it was more of a coveted position, you didn't get paid as much. So I stayed in concessions. So I did that for probably a year. Yeah, that was a learning experience, let me tell you. That was my first big girl job, that you actually had shifts for, and, they took taxes, that kind of thing. And because, before the penny flyers, that was cash. And then the newspapers, you got paid from what you collected. And so you paid the newspaper back for however many newspapers there were. And I don't really even remember how that all, I just know that, you had to keep a tally but I don't remember. Those years are such a blur to me. And I also was really young. So maybe I know that I collected all the tips and I figured out everything, and maybe my mom and dad, wrote a check to or sent the money. Somebody came and picked up the money. There was somebody who came to pick up extra newspapers and to collect whatever money there was. So yeah, that's all a blur. But there were no taxes, like there were no taxes collected. You just took your tips or your money from your collections. So, and then I stopped being a newspaper delivery girl, just before they went to the subscriptions and people paying, via credit card or whatever, whatever the process is now, is they were just starting that when I was on the tail end of delivering papers. So yeah, so I never experienced, the whole tax system and a paycheck that you had to go to the bank and actually cash, that whole deal. And so that was my first big girl job, was the movie theater. And then I got a job in the jewelry area of Consumers Distributing, which is no longer. That went under long time ago. But I worked that for a number of years, and met some very interesting people who would come in and get jewelry for their girlfriends, other girlfriend, and other girlfriend. Yeah, that was fun. And yeah, so I did that until I left high school, and then and that's actually where I met my now ex-husband. Was one of my best friends was going out with one of his best friends, and his best friend didn't have a car. And so he would use my ex-husband as transportation. And, you know, they would go to the bar. They were 18. And so they would go to the bar, 18 or 19. And so my ex-husband would pick up his friend. And that's actually how I met him, was through my good girlfriend who was going out with his best friend at the time. And we all went out, and then I moved in with him probably maybe 6 or 7 months after we met. Excuse me. And then 2 years later we got married. So yeah. And when we moved into our apartment, I must have quit my job from Consumers Distributing, or maybe they were closing down that store. I don't remember, but we moved kind of across town, and lived more in the West Edmonton Mall area, which is actually where his family lived. And so we lived there, and I worked at Consumers Distributing in a very teeny tiny mall over there, but they didn't really have like a jewelry section. So I worked like the actual store. And Consumers Distributing was it was a catalog order store. And so you would go to the store, and we would have like displays of things that were available, but you basically flipped through the catalog, you got an order number, put it on the order form, and then you would go up to the desk, and you would, you know, give your stuff. And this was before we had computers, so we would actually have to go to the stock room, you know, the back room, and look up all of these numbers and see if we had that item or not. And if we did, then we brought it out. If we didn't have it, then, you know, these people could either try and back order it or wait for it to come back in. And because we might have written down your number and name for an item, but if you were not a very nice person, you never got a call. And there were some very, very rude people that, you know, what do you mean that this is out of stock? It doesn't say that in your catalog. Okay, well, we probably had 50 catalogs throughout the whole entire store, right? And it was somebody's job to go through and say out of stock, you know, on like a piece of whatever tape they had across the item. But that didn't happen because we were always busy. And also things would go out of stock that day as people were buying it, and somebody wasn't able to go and, you know, update all 50 of the catalogs immediately. And so people they were not happy. And so I did that until I got my first real, I mean, those were real jobs, but you know, then kind of like on the career path of a job. And so I got a job at a MDC for the telephone company. And back then it was called AGT, Alberta Government Telephones. And then they sold it and became TELUS. And that process was happening while I worked there. And so AGT, I worked at the Material Distribution Center, an MDC center. And I put too many on this one, so I got to find a spot. There we go. And what I did was I worked in a dinky little office off-site where all of the guys would come to pick up the cable for the phones that were being built, or the phones that they were plowing for. And so I dealt with the truckers that would come in. And, you know, they'd been out at camp for like weeks and weeks and just come in to get, you know, a bunch of materials and then go back out to the camp. And so they hadn't seen girls for a while, except at the bars that they were at, but because they're at camp, you know, they can't leave. And And then I think that they would work like 4 days on, excuse me. And then they had like 3 days off or something. And that's when they would go, you know, to the bars or whatever. But, yeah, they were super, it was an experience. It was, a learning experience for me too, because I was super young. And there was a dress code. Girls were expected to wear dresses or skirts back then. And even at the MDC Center, which, I mean, seriously, I worked in, this office was dirty because it was just filled with, like it was out on a site that it was just like dirt, you know, out in the yard where they put the cables for the guys to come and pick up, and then the big trucks would come and of course kick up all the dirt and everything, and we worked in this teeny tiny little office that it was right next to everything. And so like our office was dirty, like it was just constantly filthy. And we had a small little computer that the one guy that I worked with, he'd been there since, I swear, the beginning of time. And he would hunt and peck at the keyboard for the orders. And then he would mess it up halfway through and he couldn't figure out how to back it out. And so he would have to delete the whole entire record and start again. Oh my gosh, it was a fun job. I really did like that job. And I liked working with the guys because I come from, you know, my dad was a heavy duty mechanic. So, you know, yeah, having the truckers come in and their loudness and their swearing and all of that, it didn't bother me at all because I was a little bit of a truck driver mouth myself. So, or as my mom and grandma used to call it, a sailor potty mouth. And yeah, so that was my first like real, like maybe this will be a career in the future kind of thing. And so I worked at the NDC for probably a year and a bit, and I kept applying for positions because I was a temp. And I was filling in for a girl who was actually on maternity leave. And in Canada, you actually got like 9 months of maternity leave or longer if you wanted. And you got paid. Again, I don't know what the deal is now, but you got paid, you know, 80% and then 60%. And then it went down for months. But it was a very generous maternity leave program. And so I knew that my time at the MDC was probably not going to last because she was going to come back at some point. And so I started applying for positions in AGT at the corporate office corporate building. And I got one, and again, it was a temp position for somebody who was on maternity leave, but the managers really, really liked me, and so they found basically a position, and because it was union, and so, you know, they would have to post the positions and have people apply and everything, and so, but I just ended up being the candidate that was most qualified, probably because I was already in that job. But in order to make it fair, government or union-wise, that's how it went. But then when AGT went to TELUS and the project that I worked on, or my division worked on, lost a boatload, and I mean a boatload of money, and it didn't work. And so there was a bunch of layoffs. And because I was one of the last hired in, you know, that's the last hired in, first out. And so they did voluntary retirement, which quite a few ladies took. And then they did, you know, they started the last in, first out, you know, kind of deal. And I ended up being the last person. There was X amount of layoffs, and by the time they went through all the retirees and the early packages and whatever, they had one last position that they had to get rid of, and it was me. And it was totally fine because I was pregnant with my third child at that point, and I was stressing out a little bit how I was going to be able to, have all 3 kids looked after while I was at work. And at the time, my ex had been going to school and, going to school at night. And so he was able to watch the kids during the day. But eventually, he was going to, graduate and get a job. And he was going to have more earning potential than I was. And so we made the decision that because there was the layoff anyway and whatever, that it was just a really good time. It wasn't a great time, but it was a good time that I stayed home. And so, so I did that for a lot of years. I probably worked, I had M when I was 25. So, and I had that job so I probably worked for TELUS for about 5 years. Yeah, I would have worked for TELUS for at least 5, maybe even 6 years. And 5 years, because I got married at 21, and a bunch of the people that I worked with were at my wedding. So, so at least 5 years that I worked for TELUS, whether it was in a temp position or permanent. And then I stayed home for 21 years. I was a stay-at-home mom. And then I got divorced, and I had to go out into the workforce. And my skills were limited because, I'd stayed home for 21 years, but also like technology had passed me by, there were so many things that the things that I knew, and also Canadian background, my Canadian work background, it wasn't applicable anymore. And so, and what I had done was I volunteered a lot. I did a lot of volunteering, whether it was for the swim team or for PTA, and I held a lot of different positions. And so that was kind of like my experience. And so I was hoping there was a position on the swim team that my son swam for, that they were looking for basically an office manager, somebody to help, do payroll and, coach and schedules and swimming and knowing the rules and all those kinds of things. And I knew all of that. I knew everything except payroll. And there was another lady who had also gone out for the position, who was also a parent on the team. And apparently she had the payroll experience, and that's why she got the job. And I was devastated, you guys. Like, I was devastated because, I love the swim world. And my son was in it, and not necessarily that I should have worked for the swim team that he was on anyways, because that it becomes weird. But I was just devastated. It was the first job that I'd actually really tried to go out for, and through the process of my divorce, and like when I didn't get it, I just felt like this total failure, and also there was a stress of the finances and all of that. Well, one of the ladies who was on the hiring board, she knew me. I'm well known in the swim community, in our area, because of all the volunteering that I do. Plus, I'm that loud, obnoxious parent who roots for her child, and you can hear me a mile away. Um, but I was very, I did a lot in the swim world, and I was known by quite a few teams and quite a few parents and coaches and whatever. And so anyways, when she was on the hiring committee, she knew, the things that I had done. We'd worked together at some of the swim meets as well. And she recommended me to a friend of hers that was in need of some temp admin help, to get them through tax season and stuff. And she asked me if I was, willing to speak to this lady, and if this was something that I was able to do, and it wouldn't be a full-time position. And I'm like, perfect, because at the time, I was still watching my granddaughter, and my last son was having a very hard time with the things that were going on through the divorce and what was happening, and I had a lot of appointments with him, and trying to keep him in school. There's a whole long story over that, but so yeah, and then also between court dates and mediation and all the other things that I had going on at the time, like I could not do a full-time job. There was just no way. But I needed something that was going to get me some experience back in the workforce, as well as a bit more financial, because I basically lost 60% of the income that I'd had before. And so, and I'm still supporting my kids, and at the time. And so, yeah, so it was a bit of a stressful situation. And when I didn't get that job, I was devastated, because I was like, it would have worked perfectly with my schedule, and how many jobs can you get, that is going to work around your schedule to the point that I needed. And she explained that this one probably was going to be the same kind of deal. And, was I interested? And so, and it's run by two ladies, co-owned by two ladies. And so I interviewed with both of them, and they were willing to take a chance. And here I am 2 years later, almost full-time with them. I choose not to do full-time, just because I still have obligations with my family, and but it's such a flexible work schedule, and it's wonderful. Like I really lucked into this. So and I got to learn a lot. I got to I'm learning payroll and accounting and all the things that I wanted to do back in the day and wasn't allowed to do, because my ex-husband did not think that being an accountant was a worthwhile thing to do. And so he was not on board with me going back to school or supportive or anything. And so it kind of failed to the wayside, but here I am, so many years later, and being able to do it. And it's been a really awesome experience. So it's weird how life takes you where you are. And so that's, other than, and also of course my biggest job being a parent, but and I like that job. My kids are, I love my jobs. I love my jobs. And I've gotten experience from each one, of learning from each one, and whether it's volunteering or paid, you learn things that help you further your steps in the future. And I'm just one of those people that really believe that experiences come far and wide, and all experiences are important, because they teach you something, whether it's you're never going to do it again, or it's a valuable lesson, or it's a stepping stone to something better, whatever it is. But there's always something that makes whatever experience you are doing something positive for the future. Sometimes it's not always positive, but there can be some positivity out of the negativity. So anyway, so I am done the section that I needed to do for the color I have. So I'm going to stop here and get myself ready for the game, because it's an event. There's snacks and comfy chair, and you know, you got to get yourself comfortable to be able to couch coach. And so yeah, so that is what I'm gonna do, and continue on with this, finding a different color. And yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you are not a subscriber and would like to subscribe, I would love for you to be on my subscriber list. And I hope to see you all in my next video. All right, bye-bye.